Well met, friends. I am Archmage Milo Luckyleaf of the Riven Council, and today we are studying Druidcraft. Most druids I have known treated this cantrip as a curiosity at best and a waste of a spell slot at worst. They were wrong, and I'm going to show you exactly how wrong. Let us begin with what Druidcraft actually does, because the description is deceptively short and the misconceptions stack up fast. The spell produces exactly one of 4 effects per casting. You choose at the time of casting, and those 4 options are the whole of it. There is no 5th effect hiding in the footnotes. The first effect is a weather prediction. You produce a sensory manifestation that tells you what the natural weather will be in your current location over the next 24 hours. Note the word natural. The spell reads the sky, not the dungeon. If a wizard is conjuring a blizzard 2 miles north of you, Druidcraft will not know that. It tells you what the weather would be if no one were interfering with it. The second effect is a minor plant interaction. A flower blooms, a seed pod opens, a leaf bud unfolds. That is the entire list. I have heard druids at the table insist they can use this to grow difficult terrain, to accelerate a vine across a wall, or to produce fruit from a tree. None of that is in the spell. The plant effect is cosmetic and instantaneous, and the brief flowering is gone before anyone can trip over it. The third effect is a sensory phenomenon in a 5-foot cube. Falling leaves, a puff of wind, a faint animal sound, a mild odor. The spell offers those as examples, not as an exhaustive list, so there is some creative latitude here. But the spell also requires the effect to be harmless, and in the 5th edition of the rules, harmless has a specific weight. The spell imposes no conditions, deals no damage, and grants neither side any mechanical edge over the other. If you are trying to flash a light into a guard's eyes and impose the blinded condition, Druidcraft cannot do that. If you are trying to produce a sudden crash of sound to give your rogue advantage on a stealth check, Druidcraft cannot do that either. I have watched 3 different druids at 3 different tables argue this point and lose all 3 times. The spell is atmospheric. It is flavor. It cannot reach across the line into mechanical consequence. Minor illusion exists for a reason. Gust exists for a reason. Druidcraft is not a discount version of either. It is a different tool entirely. The 4th effect is the fire interaction. You ignite or extinguish a candle, torch, or small campfire. That list is exhaustive. The spell does not say those as examples, it names them specifically. A bonfire is not on the list. A burning building is not on the list. A flaming sphere, which is magical fire, is certainly not on the list. I want to dwell on that last one, because I have seen this mistake cost a druid their action at a genuinely critical moment. A player sees an enemy-controlled flaming sphere rolling toward the party and thinks, I will snuff it with Druidcraft. No action economy spent on a real spell. Problem solved. The action is used. The flaming sphere keeps rolling. The druid looks at the table. No one is happy. The spell text says candle, torch, or small campfire. Flaming sphere is a 2nd-level conjuration maintained by concentration, and Druidcraft does not touch it. If you want to end a flaming sphere, you interrupt the caster's concentration, or you dispel the spell. Druidcraft is not the answer. Understanding that boundary is not a limitation to mourn. It is a clarification that tells you exactly where the spell is genuinely powerful, so you stop wasting it on things it was never designed to do. One more mechanical note worth fixing in your mind. All 4 effects require a target within 30 feet, and the spell has verbal and somatic components. You must speak and gesture to cast it. In a stealth scenario, that matters enormously, and we will come back to it. For now, hold the 4 effects clearly. Weather, plant, sensory phenomenon, fire. That is the whole spell. What does this spell let you do that nothing else does? That is the question I keep returning to when I study a cantrip this simple. And when I sit with Druidcraft long enough, 2 answers emerge that I think most druids never reach because they give up on the spell before they get there. The first is the torch extinguish. And I want to walk through it slowly, because it is more layered than it sounds on the surface. Picture a dungeon corridor. 2 guards stand at the far end, each holding a torch. Your party needs to move past them without a fight. You have a rogue, a ranger, and a cleric, and at least 2 of you have dark vision. You are 30 feet away, which is exactly the edge of Druidcraft's range. You cast Druidcraft. You extinguish the first torch. No attack roll, no saving throw, no contest. The guard is simply standing in the dark. You cast it again on the second torch. Now both guards are blind, and your party is not. The guards will shout, probably. They will reach for their swords. They may call for help. But they cannot see you, and you can see them. And that is an enormous asymmetry to create with a cantrip, and no spell slots spent. Now, I want to be precise about what Druidcraft did and did not do here, because the distinction matters. Druidcraft did not impose the blinded condition on the guards. It extinguished a torch. The darkness that results from that is a natural consequence of the environment, not a mechanical effect of the spell. The blinded condition, if it applies, comes from the rules about heavily obscured areas and perception, not from Druidcraft itself. This is an important distinction because it means Druidcraft is doing exactly what it is allowed to do. It is changing the world, and the world's rules are doing the rest of the work. I find that elegant. The spell is not cheating. It is just paying attention to what torchlight actually means in a dungeon. There is a follow-up question worth asking. What if the guards light new torches? If they are carrying spare torches, they can. Druidcraft cannot prevent that. So if your stealth scenario depends on permanent darkness, you need a plan for the guards relighting. A rogue who moves fast, a ranger who can pin them down, a well-timed hold person from the cleric. Druidcraft opens the window. Your party has to climb through it before the window closes. The second application is the one that surprises people who think of Druidcraft as a dungeon tool. It works just as well, and sometimes better, above ground. You arrive in a fishing village. The fishermen have not had a good catch in a week. The sea has been rough and unpredictable, and they are worried. You cast Druidcraft's weather prediction. You tell the harbour master, tomorrow morning the wind shifts northwest, the clouds break by midday, and the afternoon will be calm. You say it plainly and with confidence, because the spell tells you plainly and with confidence. You are not guessing, you are reading something real. The harbour master does not know that. He sees a traveller who just arrived and is already telling him things about his own coastline that he did not know. That is authority. That is credibility, and it costs you nothing because Druidcraft is a cantrip with no spell slots attached to it. Now, what does that credibility buy you? In a social encounter, it can replace a persuasion check entirely if your reading of the room is right and the information you are offering is genuinely valuable to the person you are talking to. A harbour master who is worried about tomorrow's weather and receives an accurate forecast from a druid who seems to know what they are talking about is a harbour master who is now inclined to help you. He may open the warehouse. He may tell you which ship came in last night. He may vouch for you to the port authority. All of that can flow from a single casting of a cantrip because you used it to establish something real rather than to attempt something flashy. I want to name the underlying principle here because it applies beyond just the weather prediction. Druidcraft rewards druids who think about what information and atmosphere are worth, rather than druids who think about what spells can force. The spell cannot force anyone to do anything. It cannot impose conditions. It cannot deal damage. What it can do is change what is true about the world in small, specific ways, and then trust you to understand what those small changes mean for the people standing in that world. The torch goes dark. The fisherman sees you predict the weather correctly. The flower blooms in your hand as you speak to the forest spirit. None of those things have mechanical weight on their own, but they have narrative weight, and in the right moment, narrative weight is the thing that moves the story. Now I want to address the failure modes, because there are two that I see regularly and both are worth understanding before you reach for this spell. The first is the sensory effect used as a distraction during stealth. You are infiltrating a manor. A guard stands at the end of a hallway. You think, I will produce a small animal sound behind him. He will turn to look, and the rogue will slip past. That is reasonable thinking. The problem is that Druidcraft gives the guard no mechanical compulsion to react to the sound at all. The spell produces the sound. Whether the guard turns to investigate is entirely at the discretion of whoever is running the encounter. If your plan depends on the guard definitely turning, Druidcraft is not the tool. Minor Illusion, which is a cantrip available to wizards and other casters, creates an object or sound that a creature can investigate with an intelligence check. That is a mechanical hook. Druidcraft's sensory effect is flavor, and flavor does not guarantee a reaction. The second failure mode is the one I find most ironic, and I say that as someone who has made a version of this mistake myself. You are in a stealth scenario. You want to extinguish a guard's torch from across the corridor. You cast Druidcraft, and as you do, you speak the verbal component and gesture the somatic component, which the guard, who is 10 feet away and not yet distracted by anything, hears and sees clearly. The guard turns toward the sound of your voice. The torch goes out. The guard is now in the dark and alarmed, which is worse than a guard in the light and relaxed. Druidcraft has verbal and somatic components. You must speak and move to cast it. If the person you are trying to affect is close enough to notice you casting, you have just announced yourself. The spell's best stealth application defeats itself if you forget what casting a spell looks and sounds like. The fix is simple. Create your distraction before you cast, or cast from far enough away that your voice does not carry. 30 feet of range is generous. Use it. Get to the edge of the range, around a corner if the corridor bends, and then cast. The torch goes dark at a distance, and you are never visible. That is the version of this play that works. If this has been useful to you, I would ask you to like the video and subscribe to the Riven Council so you do not miss what comes next. Deeper records on every spell we cover live at therivencouncil.com. Druidcraft will not win a fight. It will, however, tell you the storm is coming before anyone else at the table knows to worry.